hip-hop gangster rap being orchestrated by record companies for the benefit of private prisons. And this is really, I would argue, part of a much larger scandal here, because if you're familiar with Gary Webb and the Dark Alliance about crack cocaine exploding involving CIA and the Iran-Contra network, you have weapons flooding these areas, you have drugs flooding these areas. Why is that significant? Well, the Promise Software scandal I mentioned earlier is very complex again, but one of the main players in that is Wackenhut. And another one of the main players in that is MCA, the Music Corporation of America. Basically, its subsequent iterations come to dominate hip-hop in that period. And Wackenhut, which is now Geo Group, is was then and still is now one of the main private prison companies in the U.S. And then Clinton passes the crime bill that, in 1994 that basically makes all of these things offenses and makes it much easier
floods the prisons
to fill the prisons. And what are some of the companies that end up using prison labor around this time? Well, Leslie Wexner's Victoria's Secret is one. And another company that I believe still uses it is General Dynamics, which is Lester Crown's company. Lester Crown being one of the mega group guys. Some of the biggest corporations in the world. One of them is Walmart, which has long-standing ties to the Clinton family, the Waltons. It's free slave labor.
Free slave labor, yeah.
This is Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 4. Thus saith the Lord, my God, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwat who are believing this word, in all truth and in sincerity. All right, and I'd like to go into a lesson on this clip from a Whitney Webb interview. She's an investigative journalist, all right, and I want to deal with the particular statement that she made of the connection between so-called gangster rap and the privatized prison system. And ultimately, our people don't realize that they exist inside of a system that has intentionally preyed upon them. And this is why you have a lot of our people that say, don't blame the so-called white man. Well, the so-called white man's created a system to where he doesn't even have to personally show you he doesn't like you. He's created a system that preys on you without you even being able to visually see who's preying on you. All right. It's an ecosystem at this point. All right. This is Isaiah chapter 51 and 22. Thus saith the Lord, Slakia, thus saith thy Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, and thy power that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again. But I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. And this statement is powerful because it shows that Jake is basically the foundation of this wicked empire. And what I mean by that is the exploitation of you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans is what established the system that we see today. And they didn't stop exploiting you. They just changed how the system looks. A lot of our people still feel like the Emancipation Proclamation was us being freed. It was a transfer of possession from personal ownership of slaves to now the Fed or the government itself owns these slaves. And this is why we have employers and we are considered employees. Not just us, but everybody that isn't in that elite class. But dealing with our people in particular, this falls under the curses. This is how we're able to identify who we are as a nation of people. All right, because of these curses that have covered us. All right, in the sophisticated system, it's not really that sophisticated, but the system that Esau has created through gangster rap and the pipeline to privatize prisons, where they promote the so-called gangsters, which are really just criminals. It's like giving Barabbas a record deal and showing him as the example of prosperity, because they have the ability to pay other artists that do other type of music, but they intentionally promote this type of music because it feeds a pipeline to the prison system. All right, this is Isaiah chapter 42 and 22. And it reads, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? All right, and the Lord is showing us, even putting a spirit on these investigative journalists to go into certain things that our apostles and elders have brought out decades ago, and how it supports what's being said in prophecy. There's a people robbed and spoiled. Instead of Esau wearing blackface, he's grabbing poor Jakes in the hood that are committing crimes, giving them a record deal, which is basically a high interest loan. All right. And putting them all over TV. All right. As the symbol of success. And it makes young, impressionable minds that are Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans think that that's the way to go. And all it does is fuel the prison industrial complex. All right. She went into the companies that benefited from the prison labor. All right. You have certain Jakes that were employed in the prison system in the call center, for example, that once they get out, they're no longer hireable because they have that felony. This is why the 13th Amendment is so important, because it highlights that they just changed the way the slavery looks. All right. If you're committing crimes. So instead of them truly freeing us, they've created another sophisticated system to keep Jake in bondage. All right. Verse 24 reads, who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and has set him on fire round about, yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. And the reason I brought these two precepts out is because ultimately the Lord put us in bondage because we offended. And the Lord, put the spirit on Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, to create this system. All right. And the Lord used his perpetual hatred against you, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, to ultimately put you in this form of bondage. All right. Because it goes back to the curses. Real quick, there's Isaiah 10 and 5. It says, O Syrian, the rod of mine anger and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. All right. So this is the indignation of the Lord that allowed Esau, Edom to create a system, all right, that exploits you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans wherever you go. All right. This isn't just isolated into music. It's all across this society, whether it's a corporate America, all right, whether it's sports. There's nowhere you can go in this society where you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are not exploited. All right, this is Deuteronomy 28 and 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. All right, and that's symbolic of ignorance. The Lord said he will blind our people's eyes and make deaf their ears so that they can't hear and understand. So this is our people, 2/3 outside of this truth, that are trying to find some other solution and trying to figure out why we're in the situation we're in. Coming up with vain solutions like we gotta do a community. We got to start jobs. We need to build up our own little military. All right. We have to play the game. We have to be, get into the game and then change the system. That's groping in noonday, because noonday is the brightest time of day. And it's the Lord saying, look, I've cast 2/3 of our people into ignorance. So the system that is working against them, they're so ignorant, they don't even see it. All right, continuing on, it says, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. And this is the condition that we find ourselves in as a national people. All right, we're stuck in a situation where there is no solution outside of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. All right, there is no other solution. Our people have tried all these different things. All right, and what she's pointed out is the obvious. That you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, your ignorance is what fuels and sustains Babylon the Great, which is America. This is why they don't give money to these Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that are truly trying to build up the community. They give it to so-called celebrities that keep our people asleep, that keep them dumb and docile, or chasing vain things that have no real value. They don't mind giving a couple niggas a successful, so-called successful, comfortable life if it means they can keep the rest of you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in bondage and exploited. And even those high-paid servants are also exploited. There's no getting around it outside of Yahweh Shema Shah, man. All right, this is John chapter 10 and 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. All right, because again, there is no other way. And Esau has set it up to the point where if you want to be amongst that rich elite class, you have to sell your people out. It's unavoidable. This is why the so-called stars of our people, the LeBron, they don't speak on real issues, man. And the moment they do, they get their water cut off. Why? Because again, going back to what Whitney Webb was bringing up, the whole design of the music industry is to lead a bunch of young Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans into that prison system. And that's why they don't promote positive rap. That's why they prop up guys like NBA Youngboy, so our people, the young impressionable Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans see this guy and they think, all right, well, if I thug it in the streets for a little bit, actually put some work in and then rap about it, I can also become like NBA Youngboy. And all they end up doing is catching charges, getting the companies get free labor out of them, and then they push them out into a world where they got a felony charge and they really cut off from society in another way. All right. This is why Yahweh Shai also said this. John 10 and 10, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. And we live under the rulership of a thief. That is what the so-called white man is. He's created a complex system of corruption and theft. All right. Through usury. All right. Through exploitation. Through bribes. And the Lord is saying, look, you're not going to get life more abundantly out of a man who is a thief at heart. The system he's created is a system of theft and corruption where wickedness is glorified, man. All right. And that's why, he promotes the most wicked of our people as a model of success, because it feeds and fuels this prison pipeline that nobody's talking about. And see, there's coming to a time like I forget where it is, but there's certain private prison companies that are suing the state because they promised them that they would have more than 80% occupancy, which means they've made deals that guarantee that they keep prisons 80% full at least. How were they able to do that? Because the rap game is a form of influence. Everything that's going on in Chicago during the time of Chief Keef just got exported to all these different places, to where you got niggas in Dallas talking about sliding on the ops. You got niggas in Miami talking about sliding on the ops. You got niggas in Little Rock, Arkansas talking about sliding on the ops and getting get back. You got niggas in New York talking about sliding on ops and getting get back, and they smoking on such and such. That same culture of death just got exported. And how did it travel? What was the medium it traveled through? It was the music. All these jakes that catch these Ricos, they never indict the record label. Because without the advance from the record label, these niggas wouldn't have the money to fund the guns and all the shit that go on in the hood. They'll arrest a guy like Lil Durk and make an example of him, but they won't arrest his label that gave him all that money that fueled a lot of the crime that was going on. Because it's a system of exploitation. And our people are so blind to this fact that they can't understand what's going on around them, man. All right, real quick, this Proverbs 16 and 29. It says, a violent man enticeth his neighbor and leadeth him into the way that is not good. So Esau finds these violent Jakes that are in these different neighborhoods, gives them money, promotes them, puts a bunch of jewelry on them and make them look like a star. And what do? They get on these records and they entice their neighbor to do the same violent acts that they do. And all it leads to is the prison industrial complex or death, in which Esau makes money off of that too, through the life insurance, through the funeral costs. And our people don't realize everywhere you turn, you're exploited. And this is why this gospel is so comforting and important, because the Lord is transcending this system. The Lord is telling us, look, you're not going to fix this system. It was designed, all right, this way. It was designed like this. We have to wait ye upon Yahweh Shem Yahushai so that he'll plead our cause. And our people do not want to do that, man. All right, real quick. This is Micah chapter 7 and 9. I will bear the indignation of the Lord because I have sinned against him until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. So we have to wait on the Lord to change our cause as a nation of people, because everywhere you turn is corruption and exploitation. All right. The music industry is just a very easy example because it shows the government involvement as well. That the government is involved in intentionally sabotaging you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans while telling you on camera, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They funded wars off of pouring drugs into the community and justifying the arrest and the prosecution of crack more severely than cocaine, even though white people were using it just as much as so-called black people. So-called black people were just using crack, which is a cheaper form of cocaine. And they use that to take the father out the home, just to tell you in 2025 that fatherlessness is a problem in the community. And this is why, Thawadi al-Bashim al-Shah, that we're in a time where the Lord is beginning to plead our cause through prophecy. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.